You are now listening to the Fantasy Whisper podcast with your hosts, Johnny, Game Time Hicks, and Big Travy.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Whispers podcast / just YouTube video here with Podcast Monday, otherwise known as Mock Draft Monday. Travis, I am so freaking excited for this, man.
Yeah, brother. We're diving into our next chapter here of Mock Draft Monday. This week, we're doing a 10-team standard league. I'm at the number 2 position. Johnny will be at the number 9 position, kind of giving you each side of the draft here. I'm excited to show the people a little bit of strategy and what they can expect. These 10-teamers are probably the most popular standard format there is out there. You're going to see it a lot in a lot of your work leagues and in a lot of your friend leagues. And so if you're new to the gig or if you are returning, we'd like to say thank you. And I can't wait to dive into Mock Draft Monday, YouTube exclusive here. So make sure you're subscribed.
Thank you, Travis. Like you said, we're about to do mock draft on SleeperBot. Definitely recommend these guys. They make an excellent draft board so you can just practice. Makes perfect or near perfect. Travis, let's dive in here.
Let's do it.
Sorry.
Okay, so right before me at the number 1 position, Todd Gurley comes off the board.
Wow,
and
they're pretty excited.
They love Todd Gurley
Yeah.
on SleeperBot. So if you guys caught our top 10 running back episode, you would have heard me say that if you are in multiple leagues where you have some of those top selections, to try and get a piece of Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley to diversify your bonds, if you will, I'm going to go ahead and take Le'Veon Bell here. I think with his receiving prowess and in a contract year, that narrative is working really well for him. So I don't mind taking Le'Veon Bell here.
All right. So I'm turn down my volume here. Sorry about that. All right. So you've got Le'Veon Bell to Travis, then Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, then David Johnson, 5 straight running backs. And then you got Antonio Brown, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, and now I am up with the 9th pick. Travis, I do want to note, this is really funny because this is so contrary of any of the previous years, at least like the past 4 years, where it's just strictly all running backs essentially in the first round. We normally haven't seen that in a while. So it's interesting we're getting back to those days where running backs are the dominant for football. Now, when I'm looking at the draft board here, I've got Kareem Hunt, I've got DeAndre Hopkins, and Melvin Gordon, essentially my top 3 options. And with it being a 10-teamer, I'm going to tend to, I think I can, and knowing that the wide receiver position is kind of deep, I actually have Melvin Gordon as my best running back on the board. So I'm going to draft Melvin Gordon here in hopes that I can get a nice little piece on the way back. So you got Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Hopkins going. And to me, I'm liking what I'm seeing here with the options. And I really like Dalvin Cook here. And I'm going to go running back, and pick up Melvin Gordon and Dalvin Cook to start off my team.
I don't mind that at all. Both of those guys, you look at Dalvin Cook, who was on pace last year before the injury to be up there with Melvin Gordon as far as bell cows are concerned. So you could legitimately have 2 no doubt bell cows in a league that does not have very many left. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So I'm on the clock now. We've watched, after Dalvin Cook, Devontae Freeman, LaShawn McCoy, Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, and then A.J. Green. So now it's me. If I'm looking here.
A nice little run at wide receiver right there.
Yeah, it kind of sparks my interest to see if I want to go ahead and go with wide receiver here. Although I do see Jordan Howard here. That's a little bit tempting. But I'm going to take Keenan Allen here. I like his talent. I think as far as a number 1 option, We watched Hunter Henry go down in Los Angeles, and I think that's only going to boost Keenan Allen's value. So give me Keenan Allen as a true, surefire number one wide receiver, and that gives me somebody to back up my Le'Veon Bell pick. Now we're turning around. I did see Jordan Howard and Jerick McKinnon go off the board.
This leaves you in a great spot because honestly, I really like your starting two guys, and this gives you a great option as your number 3 pick. You've got an elite in Michael Thomas, at least in my eyes, and then you've got an interesting piece here in Christian McCaffrey to pair with Le'Veon Bell. Even
Joe Mixon's a little bit interesting here. Should be the bell cow in Cincinnati. They've improved the offensive line. But he's a little bit risky for my blood, and McCaffrey not being that surebred runner is also a little bit risky. So I'm going to go with what I know here, and that's Michael Thomas being one of the best at his position, and the fact that he should be a candidate for positive regression as far as touchdowns are concerned. Yep. I think we both agree that New Orleans will probably throw a little bit more this year than they did last year. So I'm going to take Michael Thomas here.
Love that pick. I really like the way your team is starting off. You've got Mike Evans, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Rodgers going as the first quarterback off the board, Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill, Joe Mixon, and now I am up. So, Travis, we're in a 10-team league. The teams are a little bit more stacked as opposed to like a 12 or 16 team. And so I know that people aren't going, a lot of people are going to have pretty good to really good running backs. Wide receivers, they can go around the same, people could have 2 pretty good wide receivers. So you got to figure out where you're going to differentiate from the pack. And the reason I say that is because you've got Rob Gronkowski, who falls all the way to the 3rd round. Now, normally I'm an advocate of I'm not going to grab a tight end early. However, in this case, because it is a smaller league, having Gronk as that elite tight end is so much better than anybody else's tight end. So I really feel like I can generate a good separation there from other teams. So I'm actually going to go Rob Gronkowski here.
Wow. Okay. So now that you've done Rob Gronkowski here with your 3rd pick, do you feel like you have to go back to running back, or do you feel like you can go to wide receiver here? Kind of curious about how you'll play the rest of your team out now that you've gone a little bit tight. You've gone tight end a little bit earlier than you like to normally.
Yeah, so I actually like the wide receiver options here, and even Alex Collins, that could be a nice 3rd piece. He doesn't have to be quite as much as a solid wide receiver too, as because I could swap it out if I need to. But here I've got a couple of options. I'm not looking at the board. A lot of people already have their 2 running backs, so I'm thinking people are going to start getting antsy to fill in a little bit of those other parts of their roster, as far as maybe quarterback or something like that. So I'm actually going to look wide receiver. I'd like to get at least one here, one good option. And, I'm looking at Adam Thielen, who I've got pretty high on my draft board as far as wide receivers. He's in my 4th tier. He's in my 3rd tier. So he's the highest skill position I have. And starting off my roster with him, I think that's a pretty solid move.
Adam Thielen should be poised to continue his success on last year with Kirk Cousins now at the helm. I don't mind that pick one bit. So a couple running backs that I had my eye on to try and get as my 2nd running back have gone off the board. So after you picked Adam Thielen, Jay Ajayi left the board, Josh Gordon, Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, Lamar Miller, and Darius Guice. Really was a fan of Lamar Miller. Would have liked to have swooped him as my RB2 here. Also was interested in Kenyon Drake. Also like Darius Guice. So, so now they're all gone. No, as is the case with a lot of drafts, fantasy drafts, as you'll find, running back comes off the board quickly, so you have to be ready to adapt. I'm going to be in a position that I'm not exactly a fan of, and that is going after an RB2 that is a rookie, especially behind a pretty bad line, and that is Rashad Penny. But if I'm talking about what I think Seattle wants to do, and that is get back to the days of a run game that was supported by one guy, and I think that is what they drafted Rashad Penny in the first round for. So I'm going to go ahead and take Rashad Penny.
I don't mind that pick because you know he's going to get the volume, right? So
Right.
you're at least yes, he's a rookie running back, but you talked about the system and the volume is there. So ex facto, he should be at least minimum RB2.
And now we're turning around here, and I'm trying to establish a team that is a good starting team across the board. You talked about...
Look who's on the board right there.
I know. Don't get me wrong. I do want Deshaun Watson here, but you will also hear us advocate for the fact that we are wait on quarterback. Yeah. There are some other pieces here, and Johnny kind of got me thinking about tight end with his pick of Rob Gronkowski. I see Johnny's boy Zach Ertz is here. I'm going to go ahead and take Zach Ertz. I think with his ability to be top 5, maybe even top 3 at the position, could allow me to separate. And I've already established a core of 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. So it's time to hit another skill position here. And because we know quarterback's so deep, I'm going to take tight end. Zach Ertz is my guy. He is an integral part of what they try to do on offense there in Philly.
And what's really nice about the Zach Ertz pick is, we're so far from the NFL season. We're not quite sure when we're going to get Carson Wentz back. But what we did see is that there's not really a big dip or difference between, if Carson Wentz is the starting quarterback or they have their backup in. There's not a big difference there. So I think he's pretty safe in either way.
Yeah, Ertz's production was pretty similar under Nick Foles as it was to Wentz, that's for sure. All Johnny, right, what do you got think? What are you thinking over there?
So I'm looking at the player that is drafting right next to me. That's my first assessment, because there's a guy that I like. However, I would like to take a stab at maybe a different position. And what I mean is I really like Fitzgerald right here. I think he would solidify my wide receiver 2 spot with Adam Thielen. Now, the guy I'm also eyeing is Sony Michel. And he's a guy that has crazy upside. However, I don't necessarily have to rely on every single week, because if he doesn't reach that high upside, then it's not really affecting my team as much as if he's my running back 2. So Sony Michel is a guy that I like. And the reason I'm looking at the guy right next to me is he has 2 wide receivers already. He's only got 1 running back. So I would suggest, I'm most likely he is going to try to look at that running back position to fill in one of those 2 slots. Sony Michel is most likely going to be that guy that he would pick. So I'm going to snipe him here. And I'm actually going to go with Sony Michel and hoping that Fitz will rebound around on my next round. And if not, I also do like Demaryius Thomas here. So I'm going to go Sony Michel.
Well, he did take wide receiver again, but he did not steal Fitzgerald from you. So it looks like you're going to get your wish here.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Marvin Jones is a good wide receiver. However, I don't think that he is as surefire as Larry Fitzgerald is every single year. So I'm going to draft Larry Fitzgerald.
Well, I'm pretty excited about this. I thought that I could wait on quarterback by not taking Deshaun Watson. I, of course, could. And then sitting here waiting for me after being patient is a guy named Russell Wilson, who finished pretty high at the position last year, I'd say, Johnny.
Yeah, we have him ranked as our number 2 fantasy quarterback right now.
So I like being able to pick him up here. This kind of puts me in a spot to be able to pick a nice flex and finish out my starting roster. And for me, I am going to go with Royce Freeman, the rookie for Denver. I think that Denver wants to use this guy as similar to how he was used in Oregon, as a bell cow, the starting running back, first, second, third down availability. I think they want to get back to playing defense and relying on the run game. And Case Keenum will be a little bit more than a game manager. So I'm going to go with Royce Freeman here.
All right.
And it's similar to like what you were saying about Sony Michel. Like, I don't need Freeman to hit because he will be a flex position at this point.
Right.
But between him and Rashad Penny, two rookie running backs, if one of them hits, I have confidence in the rest of my team to be able to make it and return value.
So it's interesting here. A lot of people are starting to take their quarterbacks. I know it's super deep, but I have Cam Newton as my number 3 quarterback here. And again, I'm going to look at the next guy over, and he's already got a quarterback, although last time I kind of projected what he would do in it. So I'm going to hold off on Cam Newton. I'm going to double down on what I was saying last round. And when I'm looking at my roster, I'm liking how it's forming out, but I see a guy who in Chris Hogan, who could be a monster this year with Julian Edelman, missing the first 4 games. They're not sure who's going to be the other outside wide receiver. We know that Tom Brady has a rapport with Chris Hogan. I love his upside, and at this point, it is just an upside play. Except for I just realized that I also have Sony Michel. So I don't like to draft 2
and Rob
players
Gronkowski
and Gronk. So, yeah, I don't want to own all of the New England Patriots here. This is why you got to pay attention to your own squad. And I'm going to go, with that being said, I'm going to go Marshawn Lynch. All right, so Carlos Hyde and Michael Crabtree went right around me. And like I was saying, I thought that Cam Newton would fall to me here. And I feel like I'm getting a good enough value, and I'm pretty solid on the other pieces that I have, that I'm going to go ahead and go Cam Newton.
And once again, we see that quarterback is deep, and you are able to wait into the later rounds and still get a guy. Cam Newton could be top 5, top 3 at the position. Johnny was able to get him here in the 8th round. If I'm looking at my team here, it's kind of shaping up. I have my starting lineup set. So I think it's important to start stacking a bunch of pieces I think can turn into valuable either trade assets or backups, or if any of my starters were to get hurt. That being said, I'm going to look at the wide receiver position, and a couple of guys I like here are Pierre Garçon, Emmanuel Sanders, and Randall Cobb. All these guys I think are undervalued and very productive and efficient wide receivers. I'm going to go ahead and take Emmanuel Sanders. I think if we're talking about style of play for wide receiver in Denver, I believe Emmanuel Sanders actually fits Case Keenum's style a little bit better than Demaryius Thomas. Mm-hmm. And then turning around.
It's a very good point.
Turning around, I am going to look at running back here to kind of stack some guys I like. And this might be a bit of a reach for you, Johnny, but I like Tariq Cohen. I'm going to snag him here. I think he's got huge amounts of upside with Nagy coming over from Kansas City. Tariq Cohen is a beast. He is super athletic, and I think they're ready to use him, and they got him lining up all over the field. And what we're hearing now is that the Bears have huge plans for Tariq Cohen. So I'm going to go ahead and snag him. I think there's a lot of upside in that pick.
I absolutely love that pick. And yes, the guy I want. Okay, so for me, when you started talking wide receiver, I'm looking at my 3rd wide receiver here, and I want a guy who can give me, wide receiver 2 numbers pretty consistently and have the ability to give me wide receiver 1 numbers on certain weeks. And I was hoping and praying that you would take Emmanuel Sanders over Randall Cobb. I absolutely love Randall Cobb this year. He's a guy that if you look at Aaron Rodgers when he was healthy, a few years ago, we saw Randall Cobb was his go-to wide receiver. Now, Jordy Nelson is gone. I do like Devontae Adams, but even if you slot Randall Cobb into that number 2 wide receiver spot, Aaron Rodgers has always produced his number 2 target was always a top wide receiver 2 or better. And so I like those odds, and I like what I'm seeing at and hearing out of camp about Randall Cobb. So I'm going to go Randall Cobb here. And then right after me went Devin Funchess and Nick Chubb. So I'm going to start looking at what my running back options are. I'm pretty solid in my wide receiver options, and now I'm looking for some upside. And a guy that I think is getting a little too much flack, and, somewhat so because he burned people so badly last year. But Isaiah Crowell was going in the second round last year. We saw his potential a few years ago. We do know the Jets like to run the ball, and they will give the rock to one guy. Usually it's rare that they give it to 2 kind of backs or split the carries. So I'm going to go with Isaiah Crowell here.
Yeah, I like that pick. He's at least a named starter that you got there. So I do not mind that pick. And we saw a little mini run at running back there at the beginning of the round. Then Andrew Luck, Trey Burton, Marquise Goodwin, Jacksonville Jaguars defense, and Robert Woods. I like the Robert Woods pick. I might have been tempted to take him there. I'm going to turn around and look at running backs. And a guy I like is Ronald Jones II, a rookie. And we talked about Doug Martin taking off. The muscle hamster is out of Tampa Bay, and now Ronald Jones II comes in. And from what we're hearing, he could be their workhorse there. Obviously, Peyton Barber's still around, Jacquizz Rodgers, but I like Ronald Jones to go ahead and win this job. I think he's motivated. And so now when I go from saying how rookies make me nervous, I have drafted 3 rookies. So at least they're at the position where I think they make the most impact, and that's at running back. I'm going to turn around and now look at wide receivers. And if you're looking at wide receivers here, I like Allen Hurns. He is the number 1 in Dallas. We have some information that he actually graded better than Dez Bryant on a lot of plays last year per Pro Football Focus. So Allen Hurns is their possible number 1 in Dallas. I'm going to take him here. I think there's a chance that the volume alone will make him a nice pick to have here.
Yeah, I like both of those picks. Ronald Jones was a guy that I was actually looking at when I was deciding between Isaiah Crowell and Ronald Jones. For me, it's just the indecisiveness. We've heard kind of both stories come out of Tampa Bay. He's a guy that, we're doing this mock draft early June. He's a guy that I want to monitor during training camp to really get an assessment of how they're going to use him. But like you said, we're in the 10th round, late 10th round. He's got a lot of potential. I love that pick. And then Allen Hurns, I second your information there. A couple of interesting picks came off the board right before me, and that was Jamison Crowder and Chris Thompson. Both guys I was really hoping at least one of them would fall to me. I like both of those guys in that system with Alex Smith, who's the check down king. Unfortunately, they didn't fall to me here, so I'm going to check to see what my running back options are. I'll tell you, as far as my wide receiver options, I'm looking at Sterling Shepard there. I really like that offense a lot this season, and Sterling Shepard's a guy that's been rumored to be being slotted all over the field, not just out of the slot. So it's interesting here. I could shore up that backfield like Travis was talking or asking me about earlier about the Oakland backfield. So I could just go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to push my chips in. I'll get them both, and that's that. I know I'll have a backfield. Usually I tend not to do that in drafts. I rather risk it and, double down kind of in the sense of like, I want to gamble a little bit. I want to try to get as many dart throws as I can, especially with the running backs that I have. I feel like I have 2 starting running backs, so I'm just kind of searching for that third one. So I don't necessarily think I have to do that. So Another guy I like is Ty Montgomery here. If he is the guy in Green Bay, we've seen him be a pretty big monster in the early season last year. So he's definitely a guy. Duke Johnson as well. We saw him be a number 1 running back, but I think ultimately I like to go a little bit safe here, and I think Sterling Shepard will fall to me in the next round. So I'm going to draft Doug Martin, and now I know I solidified that backfield. And then you've got Cooper Kupp, Houston Texans D coming right after. And so I'm going to something. Okay, Travis, I got a question for you.
Okay. You talking about Robbie Anderson?
No, Donta Foreman. Do you have any what's your gut feeling on Donta Foreman coming back from that Achilles injury? Because what we saw out of him last year was very flashy, very I mean, he looked like he had a lot of potential, but coming back from Achilles injuries tend to take a little bit longer, and the players aren't necessarily themselves right away.
Yeah, for me, I like Lamar Miller too. He isn't going to wow you. Lamar Miller isn't like Donta Foreman is, but like you said, there's going to be some time him nursing back from that. And Lamar Miller isn't ready to give up the backfield lead and a lot of the first down carries. So for me, I'm maybe a year too early on him as far as the Foreman hype, but I think it's close, man. He did show some flashes of some greatness.
Yeah. So ultimately, I went to a Sterling Shepard here. I just thought that I would take, another shot. I do like that offense, like I was stating, and so Sterling Shepard.
So for me, Johnny talked about shoring up backfields. It's something that I like to do. He doesn't particularly like that, although he did go that route in this. But if you've got guys that you can, if you know you can lock up a backfield, it's a pretty good feeling to have, because then you're not so worried about having to draft a bunch of different guys to make up for if your guy loses out on the job. So for me, I'm going to take Devontae Booker here. We've had some reports that maybe it could feature a Booker heavy running back output this year based on some reports out of Denver. So I'm going to take him just to kind of hedge my bet with Royce Freeman. I'm then going to turn around with that same turnaround and take Chris Carson. I also drafted Rashad Penny. Mm-hmm. So I shore up both the Seattle and Denver backfield, so to speak, with their 2 best runners. And I leave myself in a position to make sure I have one of those backfields. And in both cases, I like those teams to start running a lot more this year behind weak line play. Sometimes what helps weak line play out is getting a run game going. So that's the take I took on these 2 rounds, is to shore up some of my backfields.
All right. So I'm looking at my team and what I might need, and I'm really liking my depth at all positions essentially. So this is something like we just talked, I never do. But looking at Latavius Murray right there, best one on the board in my eyes, as far as, maybe not the best one, but I do like the potential of Duke Johnson. Kenneth Dixon does intrigue me.
Giovanni Bernard's actually kind of interesting down there too.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean here.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, because I am going to be pretty reliant on that offense, or, on those running backs. And so I'm going to take Latavius Murray here, thinking that I now lock up that backfield as well. So it kind of solidifies that. And we saw Latavius Murray actually succeed in this offense last year. If Dalvin Cook were to go down again, I know that I've got a capable guy as my backup here. So I'm going to go to Latavius Murray, shore up that backfield. And then we've got Ben Roethlisberger and Greg Zuerlein. And I'm going to actually look at kicker here, because I think Stefan Gostkowski, can't speak right now. Gostkowski is considerably the most consistent kicker out of any kickers over the last few years. Greg the Leg, he's a great kicker. but we know what the offense in New England is going to look like. It's the same every single year. And even if Brady trails off a little bit, I think that only benefits the ghost. So I'm going to go Gostkowski here.
And a heartbreaking run at kicker, and now I'm just left gasping for breath as I don't know what I'm going to do.
We started the train of kickers, and
Johnny just goes ahead and takes the life right out of me here at the end of the draft. 2 rounds left, and Johnny's just taking my heart. I'm going to go with my boy, hometown or a homer here, and I'm going to take Mason Crosby. If you're the kicker for an Aaron Rodgers-led offense, good things are going to happen. You're going to be in scoring range.
Yep. And
if we're talking about defense, because I am not going to lie, you can literally stream defense. Everybody knows that every week.
And there's always at least one surprise defense that comes completely out of nowhere. The Saints were a good example last year. Baltimore was a great example 2 years ago. These teams that don't seem to be, like they're going to have a good defense, all of a sudden they put it together and they are creating turnovers and mismatches and all that.
Yeah, my thinking is basically draft someone who is going to be playing a crappy team week 1, and then you can kind of go from there. For me, the Ravens play the Bills week 1, and the Bills are talking about maybe Peterman starting or competing for the starting job. They got A.J. McCarron there, Josh Allen. So just a 3-headed monster of just super talented quarterbacks in Buffalo.
The gauntlet. They call it the gauntlet up there.
Exactly. So I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here. They play the Bills week 1. I like that matchup. I think, if anything, I'll have 1 week where the Ravens stunk it up, but they were actually a really good defense last year for fantasy and real life. So
I like that pick. That's the exact kind of mantra that I go after when I'm looking for a defense. Just give me a team that plays a good matchup week 1. But I actually like New England Patriots defense. Bill Belichick always seems to coach up his players. There is a new defensive coordinator in New England, so that does make me a little bit worried here. But a team that I like the upside of my team. And with that being said, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. I think they have a nice young defense. I think that they could do some things this year, and it's a mock draft. Why not? We're just checking it out here. All right, so that's the end of our mock draft. O.J. Howard was the last and final pick.
I'll tell you why not, Johnny. Because the Bears play the Packers week 1. So that's why you shouldn't be drafting the Bears. So that's a good thing it is a mock, because Johnny would immediately drop the Bears after this mock draft was over and pick up a team that wasn't playing Aaron Rodgers the next day.
This is very true, but yeah, exactly. That's my second to last pick. I can go
Johnny, list your team off for these people. Let them know how you did in this 10-teamer.
All right, so my first pick, I got Melvin Gordon. Second pick, Dalvin Cook. I wrapped around, got third. On my third round pick, I got Rob Gronkowski, Adam Thielen, Sony Michel, Larry Fitzgerald, Marshawn Lynch in the 7th, Cam Newton in the 8th. 9th round, I went with Randall Cobb, Isaiah Crowell in the 10th. 11th round, I went Doug Martin, Sterling Shepard, then Latavius Murray with my 13th pick, and my final 2 picks were Stefan Gostkowski, and then the Chicago Bears defense was my last pick, which I would immediately be dropping after realizing they play the Green Bay Packers week 1.
All
Travis,
right. So from the second position, I took Le'Veon Bell. I then took Keenan Allen with my second pick. Third pick was Michael Thomas. So started off my wide receiving core pretty strong there. I then worked through the draft. I got Rashad Penny, Zach Ertz, and Russell Wilson. Turned around with my 7th pick and got Royce Freeman. 8th was Emmanuel Sanders, an upside play in Tariq Cohen, and another upside play in rookie Ronald Jones. I took Allen Hurns as he's the number 1 in Dallas now, and I shored up both the Denver and Seattle backfields by picking Devontae Booker and Chris Carson back-to-back. Then I took my main man, Mason Crosby, out of Green Bay, and I finished it off with maybe the steal of this draft, the Baltimore Ravens defense as my last pick. I mean, look at these teams. Like number 4 here, taking the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 10th round.
Don't be that team.
Don't be number 4.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys so What?
Yes, the guy also took Matt Ryan, so
hey,
he must have been drunk.
Do not drink and draft. People, leave that to the pros.
Please draft responsibly.
Yes, exactly. And please continue to watch our Mock Draft Mondays. We'll be putting these out every single Monday from here until the start of the season. If you guys have a pick or a slot or a different, PPR, whatever kind of draft you would like to see us do, please message it, leave a comment below. We would love to, do what you guys would like as far as mock drafts go.
Also,
Travis?
If you have a certain strategy like running back heavy or zero running back or upside down or quarterback early or no quarterback, you got to let us know. If you let us know in the comments which style you'd like, me and Johnny could take that on for an episode as well, show you how to draft from those different styles, what your team could be looking like if you use them. So please check out the website, check out the Facebook page, and let us know what you think. And remember, Mock Draft Monday is a YouTube exclusive. Johnny, it's been a pleasure, man.
It's all, like always, good drafting. Until next week, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.